Under Manhattan in 1930, 60,000 cubic yards of rock stood between ambition and possibility, until 8 men and a Marion steam shovel, weighing 45 tons, turned an impossible excavation into the bedrock of the Empire State Building. America remembers the skyscraper, but few know that U.S. patent number 285,100, born from a frustrated Ohio inventor, made moving mountains possible where hand labor fell short by a factor of 40. The men who braved 16-hour shifts to master these coal-fired giants changed New York forever, faster than anyone believed possible. How did obsolete steam and immigrant skill carve out America's proudest landmark? The answer rewrites how the Empire State really began. January 22, 1930, brought a new kind of battle to Midtown Manhattan. Crews faced the task of removing 60,000 cubic yards of rock, enough to fill a freight train stretching more than 6 miles, while surrounded on all sides by the lifeblood of New York. Gas mains, water pipes, ancient sewers, and the tangled roots of a city that never stopped moving. The site, once home to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, demanded excavation down 35 feet, straight through Manhattan's schist. A metamorphic rock forged under such heat and pressure that it challenged even the most advanced machines of the day. This was not loose earth or sand. Manhattan's schist is so dense and unyielding that it forms the natural foundation for the city's tallest towers. Its crystalline structure dulls steel and cracks concrete, resisting every blast and bite. Engineers had to plan each charge of dynamite with surgical precision, layering mats of woven steel over the site to contain flying debris, while surveyors mapped a safe route through a maze of pipes and wires just beneath the pavement. Any miscalculation could cripple entire city blocks. The excavation footprint covered nearly 2 acres, but the real challenge ran deep. Beneath the city's surface, the rock did not lie flat or uniform. Schist fractured unpredictably, forcing workers to adjust their methods with every foot of progress. Some sections revealed pockets of soft fill and debris from demolished buildings, while others hardened into near impenetrable granite, requiring hours of drilling and repeated blasts before a single bucket could be filled. Every day, the crews measured their progress not just by depth, but by the number of obstacles overcome. Old foundations, forgotten cisterns, and the constant threat of water seeping in from below. Urban construction in 1930 meant working without the benefit of modern surveying tools, GPS or hydraulic machinery. Crews relied on hand-drawn blueprints, steel tape, and the practiced eyes of site engineers. The city above kept running. Trams rattled down Fifth Avenue, and crowds hurried past barricades, while below, a hidden world of laborers chipped away at the ancient rock, inch by inch, under the relentless pressure of a deadline that brooked no delay. The excavation was more than just a technical hurdle. It was a race against the city itself. With every load of shattered schist hauled away, the workers made room for the steel skeleton that would soon rise faster than any building before it. The stakes were measured not only in tons of rock, but in the delicate balance between ambition and disaster, as the city's future quite literally depended on the precision and endurance of those who carved out its new foundation. Henry Barnhart had spent years in the operator's seat, wrestling with machines that failed him when it mattered most. In 1883, his frustration became invention. He filed for U.S. patent number 285,100, introducing a solid iron rod system, hog rings, that replaced the weak chains found on rival steam shovels. This wasn't just a sturdier part, it was a complete rethink of what a steam shovel could endure. The rods carried the full weight of the boom, letting the machine attack dense ground without buckling or snapping under stress. Marion's design didn't just survive tough jobs, it thrived on them. That mechanical edge paid off on the world's grandest stages. In Panama, Marion's shovels set records that stunned the industry. One machine moved over 53,000 cubic yards of earth in just 25 8-hour days, a feat that made headlines and turned Marion into a global name. Contractors from New York to South America took notice. If a project called for cutting through rock, clay, or anything in between, Barnhart's machines were the safest bet. By 1911, 90% of the world's large bucket steam shovels and draglines came out of Marion, Ohio. The city earned a new reputation, the city that built the Panama Canal. Every innovation, from the reinforced booms to the robust crowd engines, was driven by Barnhart's insistence that a machine should never be the weak link in a crew's chain. For the Empire State Building, where Manhattan's schist could grind lesser machines to a halt, this reliability wasn't a luxury. It was the only way forward. Marion's shovels didn't just offer brute strength. Their solid construction meant fewer breakdowns, less lost time, and crews who could trust their equipment to keep pace with a schedule that left no room for error. In the race to excavate a city block's worth of bedrock before the first steel column could rise, that trust was everything. The proof wasn't just in patents or sales figures. It was in the daily rhythm of work, in the certainty that when a Marion bucket bit into Manhattan's ancient stone, it would come back up full, again and again, until the foundation was ready for the future. A Marion steam shovel at full throttle was a mechanical symphony, but the real music came from the men who ran it. 8 workers made up a typical crew, each role essential, every motion rehearsed over months of hard labor. At the heart of this operation sat the operator, perched in a narrow booth at the front of the cab. His hands danced over a cluster of levers, each one controlling a different part of the 45-ton machine. With a practiced touch, he could raise the boom, swing the house, or ease the bucket down into shattered schist, sometimes all at once. The operator's closest partner was the cranesman, stationed on the left side of the boom. He controlled the crowd engine, which determined how deep the bucket would cut and when it would empty. Timing mattered. A split second too soon, and rock would rain down short of the waiting rail car. Too late, and the bucket might jam or overload. These two worked in near silence, communicating with quick glances and the occasional shouted word over the roar of steam and steel. Behind them, the engineer and fireman kept the machine alive. The engineer monitored the boiler's pressure, adjusted valves, and kept a sharp eye on the water gauge, knowing that a lapse could mean a dangerous drop in steam. Or worse, a boiler explosion. The fireman shoveled coal, feeding the hungry furnace hour after hour, sweat pouring down his arabesque even in the dead of winter. Their rhythm was relentless. Every few minutes, another load of coal, another check of the dials. If the pressure wavered, the whole operation slowed and the deadline loomed larger. Outside the cab, 4 more men made the machine mobile. This track crew worked in constant motion, laying steel rails ahead of the shovel and pulling them up behind. As soon as the operator signaled for a move, they'd scramble to set jack screws under the frame, stabilizing the shovel before the next bite into bedrock. These men worked with sledgehammers and crowbars, their coordination as tight as the men inside. Mistakes could mean a derailment, lost hours, or worse, injury beneath a shifting mass of iron. Every shift unfolded as a tightly scripted performance. The operator and cranesman set the pace, coordinating each bucket's path from rock face to rail car. The engineer and fireman kept the pressure steady, watching for subtle changes in pitch or vibration that signaled a problem. The track crew anticipated every move, laying rails with an efficiency born of repetition. When the bucket struck a hidden pipe or chunk of old foundation, the entire team adjusted in seconds, proving that even in an age of steam, human reflexes were the ultimate safeguard. No one man could claim credit for the shovel's output. Each day, the crew moved hundreds of cubic yards, work that would have taken 100 men with pick and barrow. Yet it was the harmony of their actions, the trust and timing, that turned iron and steam into progress. In this orchestra of labor, the operator and cranesman led, but every man's hand played a part, their precision as vital as the steel they carved from the heart of Manhattan. Steam shovel crews on the Empire State Building site came from neighborhoods where English, Italian, Polish, and Mohawk were spoken in the same block. At the project's peak, over 3,400 men signed the payroll, most of them immigrants, many just a generation removed from Europe, some from the Kahanawake Reserve near Montreal. For families fleeing the collapse of Irish farms or the grinding poverty of southern Italy, a job on Fifth Avenue offered more than a paycheck. It was a foothold in a new world, a chance to trade old country hardship for American possibility. Wages for skilled operators ran $8 to $12 a day, enough in 1930 to keep a family fed and housed when unemployment lines stretched around city blocks. These jobs didn't come easy. Most men started as laborers, hauling timbers or mixing concrete, before earning a spot on the machines. For many, that journey took years. Fathers taught sons to read the pitch of a boiler, the feel of a lever under load, the subtle shift in a bucket's swing that meant rock or trouble. The pride ran deep. In some families, 3 generations could point to city landmarks and say, "We dug that." Among the most respected workers were the Mohawk ironworkers, men whose reputation for fearlessness on steel had already become legend. They commuted from Brooklyn's Little Caughnawaga, a tight-knit neighborhood where Sunday dinners echoed with a mix of English and Kanien Keha, Ghanaian Gaiha. Mohawk crews were known for their calm at height, but on the ground, they brought the same discipline and steady nerves to the excavation pits. Their presence on the Empire State job was no accident. Contractors sought them out for the toughest assignments, knowing that a Mohawk crew could be counted on when the margin for error vanished. The work itself was relentless. 16-hour shifts in winter darkness, hands raw from steam and steel, eyes stinging from coal smoke. Crews learned to trust each other in silence, communicating with quick glances or a tap on the shoulder. Mistakes weren't just costly, they were dangerous. Yet the rhythm of the job, the unspoken choreography between operator, cranesman, and track crew forged bonds that lasted lifetimes. Men who barely shared a language learned to read each other's intentions by the way a shovel's boom dipped or a rail was set. For many, the greatest reward wasn't just the steady pay or the pride of mastering a 45-ton machine. It was the sense of building something permanent, Immigrants who had left behind stone villages or wooden farmhouses now carved the foundations of a skyscraper that would outlast them all. Their stories lived on in the city's granite and steel, in the nicknames and traditions passed down at kitchen tables and union halls. The Empire State Building rose from the labor of men who saw in its shadow the proof that they belonged, not just as workers, but as builders of America's future. Just 15 miles separated Marion, Ohio from Bucyrus, but in the early 20th century, that short stretch of farmland marked the front line of a fierce industrial rivalry. Marion Steam Shovel Company and Bucyrus were more than neighbors. They were competitors locked in a relentless contest to supply the world's biggest construction projects. Each company pushed the other to innovate faster, build stronger, and deliver machines that could move more earth with fewer breakdowns. Patent filings became weapons. Henry Barnhart's 1883 design for solid iron rod bucket supports gave Marion a mechanical edge, but Bucyrus fired back with new mobility systems and more powerful engines. By the 1920s, both firms churned out machines capable of chewing through rock from the Panama Canal to the Chicago Sanitary and Ship Canal. The stakes weren't just local pride. Whoever won the contract for a project like the Empire State Building could claim dominance in an industry that shaped skylines and economies. Industry historians like Keith Haddock point to the patent arms race as the engine behind this era's rapid progress. Each improvement, whether a reinforced boom, a more efficient crowd engine, or a new method for laying track, forced the other side to respond or risk falling behind. Carol Willis of the Skyscraper Museum notes that contractors watched this duel closely, demanding ever tougher machines as urban excavation grew more complex. The result? By 1911, Marion claimed 90% of the world's large bucket steam shovel market, but Bucyrus was never far behind, and both firms set global benchmarks for reliability and output. This rivalry wasn't just about hardware, it shaped the crews too. Operators who mastered a Marion might find themselves retraining on a Bucyrus if a contract changed hands. Manufacturers published thick manuals, sent out field engineers, and even offered on-site troubleshooting. Anything to prove their machine was the one crews could trust when a schedule allowed no margin for failure. The competition didn't end with the last blast of the steam era. Even as diesel and electric drives began to appear, both companies kept refining their designs, hoping to outlast the other. The final twist came much later. In 1997, Bucyrus acquired Marion for $40.1 million, closing the circle on a rivalry that had driven a century of innovation. The legacy of that competition lives on in the machines that still bear both names, and in the foundations of every American city where their steel once bit into bedrock. May 1st, 1931 stands as more than a date on a construction timeline. It's the day the Empire State Building opened its doors, 12 days ahead of schedule, with a foundation carved from the sort of danger that can't be measured in blueprints. The excavation phase, powered by Marion steam shovels and the men who ran them, left a mark that goes beyond the steel and stone still standing today. Official records list 5 fatalities across the entire 410-day build, a number that defies the era's reputation for workplace risk, especially considering the scale of the project and the era's minimal safety oversight. One worker was struck by a truck, another fell down an elevator shaft, a third lost his life to explosives, another to a hoist, and one more to a fall from scaffolding. Each name, now mostly lost to time, belonged to a family that waited for news at home, knowing the odds were never in their favor. For every man who didn't return, Hundreds more carried scars, burns from the boiler, hands split open by steel cable, lungs blackened by coal dust. The price of progress was paid daily, in ways large and small, by men who understood the risks but showed up anyway. Yet the story doesn't end with the last load of Manhattan schist hauled away or the final rivet hammered home. The legacy of Marion's machines lives on, not only in the skyscrapers they helped build, but in the evolution of heavy equipment that followed. The Marion Model 91, preserved in Leroy, New York, stands as a rare survivor, a 120-ton testament to the era of steam. Its iron bones and battered bucket still echo the rhythm of an 8-man crew, each role as essential as the next. Visitors today can trace the lines of its boom and imagine the roar of its boiler, the teamwork it demanded, and the pride it inspired. The technology that once ran on coal and sweat would soon give way to diesel engines, then hydraulic systems, a march of progress that carried lessons from every job site. But the DNA of Marion's design, from the solid iron rods that held the boom to the precise choreography of the crew, shaped the future of excavation. The men who mastered these machines passed down more than technical skills. They handed off a pride in craft, a sense of belonging to something larger than themselves. Their legacy is written in the skyline, in the bridges and tunnels that followed, and in the memory of a time when risk and reward were measured in calloused hands and unbreakable will. By May 1st, 1931, the Empire State Building stood completed, 410 days after breaking ground and 12 days ahead of schedule. Marion steam shovels, guided by 8-man crews, moved over 60,000 cubic yards of Manhattan schist, laying the foundation for the world's tallest building. The records show only 5 worker fatalities, a number that stands out given the era's minimal safety standards. Yet the daily realities for immigrant laborers, especially individual stories behind those lost, are only partly preserved in company logs and newspaper archives. Today, the Marion Model 91 in Leroy, New York, remains as a testament to the era's engineering. The transition from steam to diesel and later to hydraulics traces a clear line from these machines to the excavators shaping cities now. What remains undisputed is the legacy. Without Barnhart's patented design and the workers' skill, the Empire State Building would not have risen at that pace or scale. The story endures in bedrock, steel, and the machines that changed America's skyline.